installing a front LOKKA locker on a 75 series Land Cruiser XJ75. The LOKKA lock ride number is LKA 409. First step is to drain the diff oil, check up the car and remove the two front wheels. We need to pull out both left and right front axle. So first remove the 6 locking hub bolt. Keep the pole as one assembly. Remove the 6 locking hub nuts. It's a 12 mil socket. Once the nuts are removed, there are flat washers, and behind it there are cone washers. So you need to take this out. This can be quite hard sometimes. If it's hard to take out, use a brush drift and hit on the bolt. So eventually they will come out. Using a flat circlip plier, remove the circlip which is in the middle of the hub. This tool is only less than $15 from eBay, and it's really worth it to take this out rather than using screwdrivers. Once the circlip is removed, remove the lock hub assembly. There is a 54 mil nut, but it is locked using a locking tab. So locate the locking tab, release it, and then undo the nut. Remove the locking tab. Remove the inner 54mm nut. Remove indexing washer. As you can see, there is a tab at the top. Remove the outer bearing. And before we can remove the spindle, you need to take out the brake rotor. So because I'm going to redo the brake anyway, just simply take out the metal oil line and take out the 2 bolts holding the caliper into the hub assembly. Disconnect the brake line from the backing plate. Remove the brake caliper. There are 2 17mm bolts at the back. Once the brake caliper is removed, we can slide out the rotor assembly. Next, remove these 9 bolts which holds the backing plate. We can now remove the backing plate, but because the brake line is connected to this backing plate, we now need to remove this rubber brake line. Once the brake line is removed, and put something to catch the dripping brake fluids, we can remove the backing plate. Using a rubber mallet, now we can hit this gently to remove the spindle assembly. And once the spindle is out, the axle can be pulled out a bit to remove it from the diff housing or the diff assembly which we would like to take out. But before that, do the right side the same way. To remove the diff housing, first we need to remove the front shaft, and before that mark the connection between the front shaft and the diff housing, as they need to go back in the same phase. Take out the 4 connecting bolts. Once the front tail shaft is removed, put it aside safely, and you need to start taking out all these 14mm bolt to remove the diff housing. Take note that the steel brake line is on the way, so remove that brake line. All the diff housing nuts has been removed, and also the brake line has been moved out of the way. Next step is to extend the right and left axle so we can pull this diff housing out. The axle only goes a certain way, so you need to align a flat spot to pull it out. Do the same for the right side, and then we can start to try to move or remove the differential housing. So we finally got the diff assembly or diff housing out. It was quite heavy to move it from the axle, but it wasn't that hard. Next, we're going to clean up. These are what's inside the LOKKA kit. Got springs and spacers and the locker themselves. So it also comes with a user manual which we need to fill in. So next we'll just follow the instruction. So the first instruction says to remove the cross shaft bolt by rotating the carrier, so the head of the cross shaft bolt is next to the carrier bearing return bolt head. So need to remove this bolt which holds the cross shaft bolt, which is this one, and if it's rotated, we will have clearance to pull it out when it's next to the carrier bearing retaining bolt. Now that I've removed the cross shaft retaining bolt, the instruction says to remove the cross shaft in the middle here. I've also taken some time to mark where all the original gears should go to. For example, I mark this as A and this is as B, so that if I ever need to put everything back together, I know where everything should be. We take note of the location of the hole which goes to the retaining bolt. Next, the instruction says to spin the gear, so I can take out what's called a pinion gears, which has a cone washer. So I'll just carefully try to remove that. So one of the cone washer actually fallen off, so it was like that. And ideally I would like to keep this together and mark this so it can go back to where it's supposed to be. So I've marked this A, B, C. So normally I just zip tie them together. Next, the instructions say to remove these 2 side gears, and in these 2 side gears there are thrust washers which will be reused when we fit in the locker. So this is the side gears which I have marked as A, and it's got a thrust washer. This thrust washer will be specific to this side and can be different from the other side, so we need to make sure that this always goes to the same place. Next we take out the first locker axle gear and we fit in the thrust washer, and I like to also keep the correct side, so this side was facing the carrier holder. And grease properly. Next we do the same for the other side. And then we put the thrust washer for the other side as well and grease properly. Fit the axle gear accordingly to the correct sides. And what we've done is we basically replaced the side gear with LOKKA axle gear. There are two spacers in the LOKKA kit. It needs to be fitted into the axle gear, and the flat sides needs to face the cross shaft, so it will be this way. Put generous amount of grease and it should help getting it stick to the axle gear. Again, the flat side should face the cross shaft. I then need to make the first measurement before installing the whole stuff, which is using the cross shaft. I need to measure the clearance, and it should be between 0.152 millimeter to 0.508 millimeter. This is as per the instruction. So just going to grease the cross shaft and make the measurement. Measure between the cross shaft and the spacer, and it should be between 0.152 millimeter to 0.508 millimeter. So again, that's 0.152 millimeter to 0.508 millimeter. So I'm actually using 0.152 filler gauge, and it's perfectly on that measurement. So measure on all four sides. Once that's done, take out again the cross shaft. The next measurement is the intercam spacing or intercam distance. And to do that, I remove the cross shaft and also the spacer, and we'll temporarily put in the cams. So the distance between the cams later will be the intercam distance, and it should be between 3.683 millimeter to 4.191. So again, 3.683 millimeter to 4.191. Once the cam gears are temporarily installed, using a spacer, find out the gap and do it around, and in my case I found out that the gap is 0.385 or 0.39, so it's well within the tolerances. So we will record all this information for warranty purposes to LOKKA locker. Now that the two measurements are within range, all we need to do is install or do a final installation, and part of it is installation of pins and springs between the cam gears. So there are holes and there are slotted holes. The pin needs to go this way on the slotted holes, because once it is installed in place, we will push it down and put spring on top of it. Put grease to hold it meanwhile. When installing, use the spacer and put grease so it sticks to the matching cam gear. Here we put the pin that way to the slotted holes, and just use grease to hold it. Grease the spacer, put inside the cam, and install it together. Remember that the flat side should face the cross beam. And it should simply stick together. Once all the spring and pins are installed, do a final check or recheck of the intercam clearance, because this clearance is very critical. So in my case it's 3.9, and you can see that it's still consistent. And so the final step is to install the cross shaft, and remember the position of the cross shaft retaining bolt. So locate the cross shaft path. So once the cross shaft has been installed and the retaining bolt installed as well, this basically completes the installation of the LOKKA auto locker for Toyota Troopcarrier. The next step is to simply clean up the gasket, put in new one, and refit to the car. Thank you.